An entitled Karen insults the pastor's gay daughter and humiliates her in front of the entire congregation by announcing that she's an abomination and a sinner in the middle of our service. But thankfully, this Karen gets shut down by the pastor himself in a way that honestly blew my mind and made me respect this man even to this day. Here's what happened. So for some background information, this takes place in a small town church in the Midwest, and I know you all already have some red flags raised, but it wasn't all that bad. In fact, it was quite nice. Most of the people who attended there were really nice old people, and there was only a handful of people that were well below their 30s. I was easily the youngest person there, and I think I was maybe 13 or 14 at the time. Anyways, I suppose I should introduce the main character of the story. This was the pastor's daughter, and let's just call her Samantha for the sake of the story. I think this was around the time that she graduated high school, and she was awesome. She actually acted as the church's Sunday school person, even though I was the only one attending. And she always snuck me a second granola bar during snack time. Now, a big thing to know about Samantha is that she is a lesbian. And I'm not kidding, she even had a girlfriend at the time who she did bring to church with her. Now, before anyone gets worried for her, she seemed fine. Nobody was really up in arms about this. Aside from the occasional disapproving look from one of the regulars, nobody really said anything. I do remember one conversation Samantha had with the church bus driver who said he was disappointed about her choices and partners, and that was honestly it. Nobody really spoke a mean thing about her. Well, that is until this Karen showed up and basically ruined everything. This Karen was new in town. She had come to our church around winter, and you know the stereotype about the super evangelical woman? Well, she was exactly that. She was super loud, a bit obese, and she was wearing a fancy Sunday dress and a hat. I mean, she was easily the most fanciest dressed person there. She also had 2 kids, a baby boy and a girl in her teens, but I really wasn't paying much attention to her, although I definitely could hear her hemming and hawing about something. Anyways, the story begins during service. Samantha had brought her girlfriend at the time, and Karen and her family was a couple of pews behind them. Just before the incident took place, I was passing around the donation dish, and I distinctly remember that she was glaring daggers at the back of Samantha and her girlfriend's heads as she dropped some cash into the dish. The pastor, we'll call him John for the sake of the story, was giving his sermon when this incident happened. I heard this Karen begin to scream. I think Samantha and her girlfriend might have snuggled a little too close together, I'm not really sure. Anyways, the whole church fell silent in shock as this entitled Karen proceeded to go on the biggest homophobic rant I've ever heard. And I learned 1 or 2 new awful words in the process. She was demanding that Samantha and her girlfriend be thrown out of the church. Well, the whole place was silent for a moment, all before Pastor John cleared his throat and spoke. I can't remember everything he said, but there is one part in his speech I remember so distinctly that it has made me respect him to this day. He said, "My daughter's orientation does not change the love that I have for her, nor does it diminish the worth that God has endowed with her. She is made in the image of God as we all are, and her worth is inherent and unassailable. To suggest otherwise is to misunderstand the very essence of our faith, which is rooted in love, grace, and acceptance, aspects it seems that you just don't hold up yourself." Well, it was like he was handing down the word of God. By the end of it, everybody was giving her a disapproving glare. The entitled Karen's daughter looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. The baby was crying, and Karen's face was legitimately purple in rage. She screamed about this place being a false temple and how we would all burn for defending this sinner, all before she stormed out of the building. And I could legit hear her peel her car out of the parking lot. After that, I think the rest of the churchgoers softened towards her, and I distinctly remember this one old couple asking Samantha and her girlfriend about what their relationship was about a couple of weeks after this incident. And I'm honestly still blown away by this entitled Karen, but more so, I'm still so impressed by Pastor John. Yeah, that pastor's a real one. He not only defended his daughter from some idiot, but he also put this Karen in her place in the most fantastic way possible. He basically said, yeah, you don't actually believe the things that you say you believe, and you're a massive hypocrite for freaking out about someone being a lesbian. So truly, Pastor John is the man, and I honestly wish more people were like him in the world. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for waving my passport in someone else's face after they try to make fun of me for being British? Because right now I'm still fuming over this, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm a 26-year-old British man, and I'm also a dual citizen in the United Kingdom and Ireland. And trust me, this will be important later on. While traveling, I was staying in a hostel, and a group of us there decided to go out to some bars, and one of the people in the group was an American guy that we will call Jay for the sake of the story. Now, for some reason, Jay immediately went against me, and it started with a few jokes that he made about me being British, which I honestly can't take. With the bland food and the bad bad weather stereotypes you might hear. As the bar crawl kept going, he was getting drunker and making more and more comments. For instance, he just started referring to me as the limey and was constantly saying things like he celebrated when the queen died. It was no longer funny, and he was just all the time making jabs about where I am from. Now, I'm hardly patriotic, and I will be the first to complain about my country, but there was a point where I was getting offended, and it was personally directed at me as he started to imitate and mock my accent. Eventually, I got annoyed, and I asked him why he thought he had the right to constantly be dunking on me and what his problem was with Britain. Well, Jay's comment was along the lines of saying, well, I'm Irish, so it's allowed me to constantly hate on Britain, and my family came to America because of the famine, and a bunch of other comments like that. Well, at this point, I was a bit drunk, and I had lost my temper, so I responded by waving my Irish passport right in his face. I asked him questions like if he had ever actually been to Ireland, or if he knew any of his family there, or even knew anything about the Irish culture, which he barely knew anything, and he didn't know any of his family, and the only time he ever spent in Ireland was a week in Dublin. Well, I started lecturing, saying that a lot of Irish people had immigrated to the United Kingdom, and that after his family spent over 100 years in the United States, he barely had any right to consider himself Irish, let alone think it's acceptable to just hate on random people from another country. Well, the other people on this bar crawl had noticed me losing my temper and laying into the guy and called me a jerk, since he was apparently only joking, and also said that it's stupid to play the I'm more Irish than you game, and I should have just asked him to stop earlier. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. Jay is the reason that people hate Americans overseas, and he's honestly such an embarrassment. Like really, what is this guy doing? Like I'm right there with the original poster. He's not really Irish, like he's never been to his home country, and the only claim he has over it is by having ancestors who came from there. That literally doesn't make any sense, like he's never been back there and he doesn't even know the culture. It's just some stupid cop-out to make some obnoxious jokes that nobody finds funny. Like why not just enjoy the time out and have a good time? It's honestly insane in my opinion, and there's just no good excuse. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because this Jay guy absolutely had it coming. Am I the jerk for refusing to wear a skimpy maid outfit for an exclusive party my friend got invited to, simply because I thought it was incredibly embarrassing and I didn't want to do it? Because right now my friend is saying that I'm being prudish and that I am ruining the party by not doing this. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I live with my 22-year-old female friend, and she recently met a guy at a beach party. She's pretty much obsessed with him because he comes from a well-known, well-off family in the area and has a certain level of status associated with him. She told me that they were sort of dating, and obviously I've been supportive throughout all of it because she is my friend. However, I've met him a few times, and I don't exactly hold favorable opinions of him. I didn't tell my friend because I wasn't fully sure of my views yet, and I didn't want to be negative. Anyways, he's throwing a party soon and invited my friend, and he asked her to bring me along too. He said it was a theme party and that everyone should be assigned a character or a style to wear. He then sent my friend a picture of our outfits, and they were two skimpy maid costumes sprawled on a bed. I immediately told her that I would not be wearing that garbage, and especially not at a party with a bunch of strangers. Initially, she thought maybe I was kidding, but then she understood that I'm serious. She said that wearing those outfits isn't a big deal at all, and that I need to stop being so prudish and serious. I told her that it is very humiliating that this guy thinks it's perfectly fine to request two women to wear that to his party. Like you're seriously asking two girls who are clearly not as rich as you to dress up as maids to your party. I then asked her if she seriously sees nothing wrong with it, and she said no. She explained that he just has a weird taste and that it might be a weird rich people thing. I told her again that I will not be wearing some skimpy maid costume. Not only is it embarrassing, it is especially disrespectful to me because I don't have any sort of meaningful relationship with the guy, and yet he thought it was appropriate to include me in this request. So I told her that I won't be wearing the clothing, I won't be going to the party, and I will from now on avoid her new boyfriend altogether. We had a massive argument, and she said that I'm lame, boring, and I'm not a supportive friend. She said that instead of helping her, I'm ruining everything and I'm being a killjoy. When she fed back to the guy that I'm refusing to participate, he even asked her if getting paid for it would change my mind, and that just made it even worse. Apparently, he told her that I have the right attitude, which makes no sense as I've been combative the entire time, and that his friends would love to get to know me. And I'm seriously just getting angry all over again even typing this out. Well, I was pretty upset and I told my dad about the situation. The party is tomorrow, and my friend decided to go alone, and she's not really talking to me right now. So am I the jerk or is she? I feel strangely very guilty even though I'm standing up for my boundaries, boundaries, but right now I really don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk. This is a weird request for this guy to make, and you are completely justified to be like, wait, this is kind of creepy. And it's even worse because this guy's like, oh, what if I pay you to wear this outfit? And it's like, really? Are you serious, buddy? You're not gonna hire me to model for some stupid clothing you want me to wear. And it's not gonna be some skimpy maid outfit just because you want it. That's incredibly creepy and that's not okay. So no, you're not the jerk, but instead your friend and her boyfriend are absolutely the jerk because they are seriously trying to justify this decision and basically flip the script to make you to be the bad guy. And that is entirely unfair. An entitled old Karen and her stupid husband tried to force me to give up my seat on a flight by claiming that I took her seat. And I'm honestly still blown away by their entitlement. Here's what happened. Over the summer, my 12-year-old daughter and I took a trip to Florida. For the flights, I paid extra to select seats so I could sit with my kids. I also paid for extra legroom. On the flight back, an entitled old woman claimed that I was in her seat, which was right next to her husband. Now, I was sitting in the middle, and my daughter was sitting at the window seat, and her husband was at the aisle seat. Anyways, I pulled up my boarding pass, and I showed her that this was my seat. But she said that her boarding pass also showed my seat, but unlike me, she wouldn't pull it out. Now, I assume the airline must have double booked the seat, so I called the flight attendant over. I explained that this woman says I'm in her seat, and that she says her boarding pass says my seat. I showed him my boarding pass, and then he asked to see hers. Well, her husband handed it to her, and it showed a seat in the back of the plane. He said that she's supposed to sit in that seat and not mine, and if she wants my seat, she can ask me, but I say no. She has to take her seat instead. Well, she did just that. She asked me if she can take my seat, and I said no, since I wanted to sit with my child, and I paid extra for this seat. Well, she and her husband started shouting at me. Her husband called me a stupid entitled jerk, although there were definitely swear words in that sentence instead of what I said. She said she would sue me if I didn't give up her seat, and I just laughed and I told her to get out of my face. She then called me an entitled childless cat lady, and for reference, I had my cat with me and a cat backpack under my seat. I said that while I am a cat lady, I have a child, and then I pointed to my daughter. Well, the flight attendant sternly told her to go to her seat or he would have to get security, and eventually she angrily walked back to her seat while flipping me off. Well, fast forward, and during the flight, my daughter had to use the restroom, so she asked me to ask this entitled jerk if he could get up so she could walk through, because honestly, even with the extra legroom, it was still too tight to walk through. Well, he refused, and then he called me some names that I definitely will not be repeating. I eventually had to call over a flight attendant who made him get up so that she could get out of her seat, and I'm honestly so sick of these old entitled jerks because the way they acted was completely inappropriate. Yeah, this story is packed full of moments where these two old people literally had no leg to stand on. They were not only being incredibly condescending and rude, but also vulgar and disgusting. Like seriously, stop trying to be so difficult and sit in your seat. If you wanted to have seats next to each other, then you should have paid the price in order to do that. And I'm sure this is their scheme anytime they take a flight. One of them buys the aisle ticket and the other person sits in the back of the plane simply because it's cheap and it's easier than getting seats right next to each other. And then they try to double team the person in the middle seat and be like, wow, I can't believe you. You're taking my seat. This is awful. And they try to intimidate you in some kind of way and make you feel like garbage. Like what a bunch of scumbags. So honestly, I'm right there with the original poster because I too cannot stand when people act this way. I caught my wife texting another man from her work, and now I'm worried that I overreacted when I got a hotel to get away from her, because right now I'm very confused and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, we met young in college and got married right after grad school. A while ago, my wife was texting a coworker and I honestly thought nothing of it. And a few months ago, while talking, she brought him up during a conversation about her work, and she eventually told me how he was complaining about his wife. And honestly, I didn't think too much of it, because never in a million years would I think that my wife would cheat, but I basically told her it's inappropriate and it could lead to an emotional affair. Well, the conversation seemed to go fine and there was no big deal for either of us. Fast forward, and a few days ago, we got out with friends to a bar. I wasn't really feeling it, and I left at around 10 o'clock, knowing that she was fine with all of her girlfriends and had a ride home. I stayed up until midnight just to make sure that she was okay, and then I headed off to bed. When I wake up in the morning, I see that she's in bed. I was curious that she didn't text telling me that she was coming home and wanted to see how she got home, so I looked at her phone. I can't say that I've ever looked at her text messages, but maybe my subconscious made me do it. Anyways, I look and that's when I see that she was texting her coworker. And this happened right after I left the bar, telling him that she wanted to see him. He responded that people would see them and all this other stuff, and then my wife responded that they could meet up in the bathroom. Then he responded jokingly by saying, "Oh, it's a good thing you delete your messages." Well, I then scroll up, and yes, she has no older messages from him, even though I'm sure they have texted each other for work. So I wake her up and she is hungover. Now, I'm in shock that she did this, but I show her the text messages, and she looks surprised and so confused. Long story short, she denies ever doing anything physical and says that she loves me and all this other stuff. But despite all this, she won't let me confront him even though she knows that she's screwed up. I then got a hotel, and my dad came down to help me get through all of this. So am I overreacting in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not overreacting. You literally confirmed that your wife is cheating on you. She has been going behind your back just to meet this guy in private and has tried everything she can to keep everything a secret. Like seriously, who knows how long this has been going on? This could have been going on for months, if not years. The fact that she deletes her text messages and this is even admitted by this guy is so disgusting it's not even funny. And sure, I'm right there with you. You would never think in a million years that she would cheat on you in this kind of way. But here you are, literally facing that truth head on, and that has got to be so devastating. So I'm honestly so sorry you're going through this. But with that being said, I think getting a hotel and going to your dad or some kind of family truly was the best move in my opinion. Because this is utter betrayal. There is no good excuse for this kind of behavior, and the fact that she would try to hide this from you and then beg you not to confront him, and that she knows that she screwed up and all this other stuff, like that's just all hot air in my opinion, and this could very well just be another lie that you're being faced with. So in my opinion, I think you're doing the right thing by stepping away and saying, okay, I gotta get this figured out, because your wife has been cheating on you in a capacity that I just don't think you're aware of. And hopefully the truth comes out sooner than later, because what she's doing to you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for not forcing my fiancé to wear my father's late wife's wedding dress to our wedding? Here's what happened. So my father lost his first wife more than 30 years ago, and for the sake of the story, we'll call her Mia. It is a very long and complicated situation, but to summarize, my mother is the second on his heart because he always said that the love of his life is Mia, and he always made it very clear. My dad still wears his wedding ring with Mia in one hand, and my mom even bakes a cake for her birthday and leaves my dad alone when it's his anniversary with Mia, and he is feeling down. There are also many photos of Mia in the house, which are also in his room because my father never wanted to change them. Now, as crazy as it may seem, this kind of thing is very normal within couples of this type, and they see that as something normal and sweet, even if it is not. For example, making a cake for Mia on her birthday was the idea of another woman who is also married to a widower and does the same thing in her life. So I've been raised that way, kind of having two moms. Even if it wasn't like that, it was not a healthy childhood, but luckily I've gone to therapy to work on all the issues that this has caused. My mother always says that he gives her the space that she deserves and feels equally loved like he loves his first wife. My siblings and I don't see it that way because our mother deserves better. But if she is happy, then we will not ruin her happiness, so we just never talk about it. Well, this is where the problem comes in. I'm going to marry my fiancé, and her mother never had a wedding ceremony, so she doesn't have a wedding dress to inherit. So my girlfriend excitedly told me that she thinks it would be cute to ask my mother if she can use her dress. My mom has mentioned that in the past, and I don't have any sisters, so I thought it was a nice idea. Anyways, I talked to my mom about lending her dress to my fiancé, and she got really excited and said yes. My mother had spoken several times about wanting to have a daughter to wear her dress, and she was very excited when my fiancé asked her to wear it, and she even tried it on. So basically, that conversation was closed. Now, almost a month after we talked about it, my mom asked my fiancé that it would be nice to wear Mia's wedding dress. Now, my fiancé told her no, as she feels a connection with my mom and not with Mia. I mean, she doesn't even know Mia. After that, my mother had been asking me to try and convince my fiancé to wear Mia's dress, as my father wanted me to put up the typical decoration to commemorate the deceased. But I told him I won't do that. So my mother now wants my fiancé to wear Mia's dress just to commemorate her, and for her to be present too, because she was someone really special. And again, I never met her and I don't know who she was. And my fiancé even feels that Mia is a total stranger to her. My fiancé wants my mother's dress, and she wants to give her a special place at the wedding since my mother sees her as a daughter, and she as a second mother, and wants to have a special moment. I told my mother that I don't intend to do that. It even seems gloomy and weird to me, but I have been raised around Mia's memory that sometimes I just don't even understand if I'm exaggerating or not. So am I the jerk for not wanting this to happen? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk, because seriously, this is overstepping so many boundaries. Like, this is so unbelievably uncomfortable, it's not even funny. So no, you're definitely not the jerk for saying no, because this is incredibly intrusive. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.